Let me get right at it. I was trying to do this as a live on Facebook, but it kept buffering my video. And as I've said before, I feel like there's some type of a conspiracy with the algorithms because I've now tested it, and at other times my videos are fine. You know, when I was speaking about parenting and those things, my video was okay. People in South Africa are kind of fed up if you go onto social media with the president, with the ANC government, with the cabinet ministers. If you look at Ubheki and the police and how they've been basically failing and how crime has gone up and the murder rate has increased. If you look at the scandals with the Pala farm scandal, if you look at the Senzo Meyiwa case where Advocate D4 has now withdrawn, it just seems like the country's not even on autopilot. It seems like it's heading for destruction. Load shedding, of course, keeps hitting us. It seems like it's just not stopping now, and it may be getting worse. Petrol is gone up. The cost of food has gone up, etc., etc. I've said before that for me, it's about localizing power and leadership in your spaces. Understand that you live on a piece of land, and you guys need to find your own leaders in your space. Set up a WhatsApp group, get to know your neighbors, see if you guys can fundraise for Wi-Fi for the entire community. See if you can come up with alternative energy and imitate what Orania is doing, maybe with solar and other options that are out there. Find intelligent ways to upskill your neighborhood so that you guys can grow your own food, you guys can fix your own cars, etc., etc. I think that's fundamentally important for you guys to get your power back, to re-empower yourself, because politicians, rich people, your pastors, some of your kings and your chiefs, they're not going to do that for you. They're very happy to be the most powerful people in the area because you constantly run to them like children looking for solutions. The more important thing for me in this video is this idea that we will have to dismantle the South African Constitution. The South African Constitution seems to be the biggest piece of legislation that governs this country. And of course, it's celebrated by the rest of the world because the rest of the world is having a fat laugh, seeing how this Constitution made sure that the masses of this country never got true reparations, restitution, and there wasn't fair redistribution of the economy and the resources of this country by and large. If you look at our education system, it seems to be getting worse and worse. So you'd like to have a community or a population that can grow its own food, that can manufacture for itself, can build its own houses, build its own roads and other infrastructure. But our education system is so pathetic that kids come out with degrees, but they can't do anything. For a 40% graduate unemployment rate, which tells you that kids are educated, but they still can't get jobs because they believe that jobs are the only thing that's out there for them. Instead of taking their destiny into their own hands and creating things for themselves and growing their own food. It's quite tragic. We need to dismantle this constitution. We need to renegotiate what type of legal system we're going to use. Roman Dutch law doesn't seem to be bringing our people justice. Initially, it was black people that were complaining, but you see more and more that other races can now see through the fugazi of our legal system. They can see that our judiciary is captured by a few politicians and also by their rich friends and funders as well. The policing system is not working, and we need as many other good citizens, normal citizens, to get weapons to understand the law so that we can enact the law and justice as normal citizens. We need to find a real democracy. It can't be that when we feel like our president, our government, our ministers, our mayors are not doing their jobs, the only thing we revert to is making noise on social media and wanting to march and shut down the streets and the country. We should be able to, with technology, with social media, be able to use fingerprints, be able to use facial recognition, maybe voice recognition, and be able to log onto systems. And at any given time, be able to voice our real opinions on how we feel about how this country is being run. And in that way, we should be able to remove the president or the ministers at any given time. If we truly claim to be a democracy, the reality is that this country is not a real democracy. You've got a handful of people at the top with the ANC that are running this country and that are able to accumulate money along with a few wealthy people who benefit from the way the country is run to ensure that they bribe other politicians to keep Cyril in power, whether it's ANC politicians or DA or EFF politicians who are all very quiet or are very uncomfortable in criticizing Cyril and his cabinet. And then they make sure that they also bribe the judiciary. They bribe lawyers. They bribe the police. We're hearing now that the deputy police commissioner is saying that Ubheki at some point has wanted her killed I mean, what type of a country is that? We've got the public protector who's currently being impeached by the president. And at the same time, that same public protector wanted the president to account, to unseal the bank statements to see who is funding him. And somehow the courts went and locked those bank statements and said, we cannot see that. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what's happening in this country. And for me, I'd rather we don't loot and riot and burn things and march. I'd rather we find intelligent ways to make sure that we dismantle the Constitution. We say, fuck CODESA. We went there when Cyril, Mandela, Jacob Zuma, Thabo Mbeki, and other people were sitting negotiating with the apartheid government. And whatever deals that they made were between them. That's why a lot of them are wealthy today. Along with the apartheid politicians, who a lot of them got farms and golden handshakes when they left office. I mean, for a time, they were in the same parliament with Nelson Mandela. That was part of the agreement. And the ANC took up a lot of this debt, which the country didn't want. The black masses in this country have got opinions which the same politicians that are meant to represent them don't follow through on. Instead, these politicians are focused on bribes from tenders and other ways in how they can loot money from the tax coffers of this country. Another important conversation we're going to have is the one of political literacy. It cannot be that people that don't understand what a vote means are allowed to vote. Being 18 years old is simply not good enough. It is simply not good enough. Do you understand what your vote means? Do you understand what a ward councillor is and who your ward councillor is? Do you understand the responsibilities of a mayor? Do you know the processes of complaining to your municipality? Do you know the work of a MEC? Do you know the work of a premier? Do you know the work of a member of parliament and how you can access them? Do you know the duties of a president and a deputy president and the cabinet of ministers? Or are you just voting because apparently you're 18 years old and therefore you have a right to vote? That is reckless. It is reckless. It's like giving any old person who has never driven a car, give them the keys to a car and let them speed on the highway. They will crash because they do not have the necessary political literacy to understand what they are voting for. That's why votes are bribed through fancy campaigns, the singing of artists. Your favorite artists, they're going to bring Amapiano, or back in the day, Kwaito artists or house DJs to come and woo you. They'll give you free t-shirts, and then all of a sudden, they're going to pump this old apartheid story of how we won with the struggle. And then you guys will vote. Or they'll speak about nationalization of the mines, expropriation of land without compensation. Because they're just trying to fuck with your heads because they know that you're an imbecile and an idiot. On top of that, you've got a majority of politically illiterate people being allowed to vote and decide on how the taxes of a very small middle class are going to be exploited by a political elite who is in bed with the rich minority of this country. The rich minority of this country get to have all the tenders. They make all the money because they own all the businesses. And because of that, they get to fund the politicians and they get to give the politicians their mandate. They're the ones that call politicians to account. Cyril, you can't be doing that. No, we don't like what Jacob Zuma is doing with the Guptas. Because they feel entitled, because they're like, but we fund you guys, number one. And number two, we create the big businesses that pay the bulk of the tax. And our big businesses hire the bulk of the people who also pay tax to you guys. This tax is meant to be building infrastructure, making sure that we have a stable country and economy, and making sure that we have a conducive environment. And instead, you guys, what you do is you loot this money through tenders with your friends, tenderpreneurs who are not giving back to the country. And sadly, a lot of our politicians are sitting on the boards of companies of the same rich elite who somehow disappear when things are going sideways. Where are all the people that funded Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC? Why are they not speaking up saying, look, I gave the ANC 5 million, 10 million rand, and I'm not happy with what's happening? Where are the biggest taxpayers? Of course, Johan Rupert is not happy with how the country is being run. But where's Johan Rupert? Where are the Oppenheimers? Where is the Enthoven family? Where is Yanni Mouton? Where is Christo Visa? As much as the black masses will obviously drag them, no, we want land back, apartheid. But for some of us who are non-racialist and who understand how this country is being run and understand the true history of this country, we'd like to hear their voices, what they think is happening to this country. Because when this country burns, for a lot of them, of course, they're going to move their money offshore, which they've already been doing as it stands. They're going to go and live somewhere else. They probably have dual citizenship somewhere else. But this country will burn. Is that what they actually want? Do they want this country to burn? Are they happy with load shedding? Do they want to privatize? Do they want the SOEs to collapse so that they can privatize because, number one, they maybe want to milk this country and make lots of profits? Or because they actually understand that the ANC government doesn't know what it's doing? And they're like, we actually want this stuff to be dismantled because we feel we can do a better job of running this country. Which is kind of sad because, like I said, they get the biggest tenders. So in effect, they are running this country because they provide the biggest services. Government doesn't provide the biggest services in this country. Government isn't building roads and building bridges. Government is not even manufacturing food or growing food. A lot of that stuff comes from Tiger Brand. Tiger Brand, Pioneer Foods, comes from Unilever, comes from Bidvest, comes from Murray and Roberts, Group 5. All these big companies that are the biggest tenderpreneurs to this country. But of course, some of your politicians sit on the boards. Cyril used to be one of them. Tito Mboweni is another one. Pravin Gordhan and them have got shares. Some of your favorite politicians, Julius Malema and them, have got shares in private companies. They live in fancy estates where there's no load shedding. And yet they want the politically illiterate masses to keep voting for them so that they can keep chowing this tax money and get to sit on boards and get to negotiate with the rich elite so that they can get a share and a seat on the boards of their companies. It's a mess. We will need to dismantle the Constitution. It is a bad document and it is not serving the people of this country. We need to politically conscientize and educate the masses to understand what they are voting for. And we need to say it cannot be enough that you're 18. You need to pass a test that you're politically literate, just like you pass a driving license test. And once you have passed that test, we will allow you to vote. Number 2, your vote will be weighed on how much tax you are paying. It cannot be that you pay the bulk of tax and the person down there who's the beneficiary of grants is going out there having lots of babies recklessly, refusing to use contraceptives, is going and getting all these meds from public healthcare spaces, is sending their kids to free schools where they also get to eat. And then when they're angry, when they don't feel they're getting enough grants because they don't work, they're not adding any value at all. When they're unhappy, they're going to go burn the libraries. So you're going to have to give more tax money to rebuild those libraries. They're going to damage the roads. You're going to have to give more tax money to rebuild those roads. And then once it gets really desperate, they're going to commit crime. They're going to come and steal from you again. And then after stealing from you, if they get caught by the corrupt police, they're going to go to jail where they get taken care of again by your tax money. It is not a system that's working. It is a broken system. And we need to have a conversation. Those of us who understand, those of us who are educated, not necessarily from school, but just have an understanding of how the world works. Those of us who pay tax, those of us who want to lead, and those of us who are tired, and those of us who are no longer scared of the poor masses because they love violence, and the rich minority because they have the soldiers and the police and private security that they can use. We need to come together as maybe a middle class or even as the rich elite who have a conscience, who are like, no, this is not good enough. And the poor who are seeing this is unsustainable. The country is going to implode and explode and everyone is going to lose. It's very, very sad, and we need to have these conversations and find out how we can make these things happen. I know I've kind of slacked, but I'm hoping that from next week I'm going to be picking up again, to be traveling around the country and meeting up with the people that follow me, follow my videos. The people that follow me obviously are known as penalists because they see me as their leader, their teacher, and their life guide. And then other people who just love watching my videos and my stuff on social media. And we need to get more active in making sure that we conscientize people on the ground to set up these local WhatsApp groups, fundraise locally, begin solving their own problems. Create your own mini Oranias where you live and try and solve your own problems for yourselves. And let's see how we can build a better country and take the power away from corrupt politicians, the corrupt police, the corrupt soldiers, the corrupt lawyers and judges and accountants and big business people and the West and the East that are invested in our economy that want us to just be slaves for them. It's time that we take the power back. Penuel the Black Pen. Penuel is God. Have a great evening, man. Cheers.